0. Hey everyone, I just saw the most ridiculous video. I can't play it for copyright reasons, but I can tell you one major faux pas piece of information among others that I'm going to focus in on, and then I'll different videos to basically take the legs out from under this monstrosity of a creation. It's called Oakland is Changing Forever, and it's by a gentleman by the name of Leung, Leung, calls himself Bay Area Wilson, and produced it a month ago, which means that he had the opportunity to straighten out the bad information. Okay, now that you know that, let me explain who I am for those who are new to Oakland and new to the subject of Oakland. I'm Zinni Abraham. I'm Oakland's first blogger and vlogger. I started Oakland's first blog focused on Oakland in 2002. I started Oakland's first YouTube partner channel in 2007. I was invited by YouTube to become a YouTube partner. And those days, a lot of people didn't really know what YouTube was or its potential, but I digress. I also, prior to that, was a columnist for the Clarion. From 1993 to 1996, I had a column called Oakland's Economy, which was then changed to just Zinni Abraham. And then prior to that, I was an intern with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency on a project called the Coliseum Redevelopment Area, where I built a computer model called the Area Redevelopment Economic Model. The city rehired me as a consultant strictly because of the operation of my computer model and their desire to use it. Then I went on in 1989 to become the consultant of the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency when Kofi Bonner was its new director. And then I worked as a consultant to the redevelopment agencies in San Francisco and also the redevelopment agency in Oakley as well. And I served as a private consultant to two developers. One, I can mention, was interested in building a market hall type of development at the corner of Grand Avenue and Staten in Oakland next to Lake Merritt. Now, I've been around a while. I was economic advisor to Oakland Mayor Leung Harris from 1995 to 1999. And then from 1999 to 2001, I was consultant to the city of Oakland and created from scratch the Oakland Alameda County Sports Commission and the Super Bowl 39 bidding committee. Out of 11 cities, Oakland emerged to compete against Jacksonville and Miami for the right to host the 2005 Super Bowl. We lost on the third ballot, November of 2000 in Atlanta. I'm responding because this Wilson gentleman, again, I can't play his video for copyright reasons, but he made a comment that was just infuriating. He said, among other things, that Oakland has a immigrant. It's really important that they have to say it's black led, you know? And Wilson plays into this racism. Wilson, why is it so important to say it's black led? All right. And then he says the AASEG, or the African American Sports Entertainment Group, is trying to buy the Coliseum for $5 billion. Now, anyone who half knows the project knows there is no shred of truth to that. The Coliseum in its current condition isn't even worth $5 billion. Here's the situation. Back in 2019, Oakland Mayor Louis Schaaf established a competition, opened the competition up for developers to bring different ideas to the Coliseum to redevelopment in a way that was better suited to community needs. Out of that competition came two black-led groups. One, the aforementioned African American Sports Entertainment Group led by Ray Bobbitt, and the other, a group led by famed Oakland athletics pitcher Dave Stewart. Dave Stewart's group lost to Ray Bobbitt. Why? Because the proposal that they turned in was done by someone who, in point of fact, had no experience in developing new towns, let alone other types of housing projects in cities, and yet presented themselves as if they had actually completed a development in Prince George's County in Maryland. That's why. So Gray's group emerged. Long story short, Sheng Tao became mayor after Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf served her second and final term. She was termed out, and Sheng lost a bitterly contested election against a number of candidates, including Lauren Taylor. She lost by ranked choice. She won by ranked choice voting by a narrow 661 vote margin. Sheng then went on to conduct the city of Oakland's management in a way like no other. She engineered a raise for herself within 6 months of being the mayor. She set up jobs that were through people who wanted to be involved in the city as commission members. And so what she would say is, if you want to be involved, if you want to be on a commission, you have to actually pay to be on it. So she actually hired someone to administer these requests for payment from people who wanted to be on commissions, which, by the way, is illegal. And I can go on and on and on and talk about the number of illegal actions that she had taken. But Sheng, with respect to the Coliseum, had an idea that tied the Coliseum's land purchase provision that was part of the competing developers to the city's $125 million deficit at the time. She thought, oh, hey, if this developer is going to buy the land, we could just simply take that money and put it in the general fund and close the deficit. What Sheng didn't realize is that the city of Oakland cannot just sell its land to a private buyer and just pocket the money. The law is such that they have to find an affordable housing developer for that property. That's a citywide rule. And if the property has bond issues that were released to pay for development on the property, in this case, the Oakland Coliseum Stadium and Arena, those bonds have to be defeased. In other words, they have to be paid for first and then closed out, which takes years. And that's precisely what got in the way of an immediate transfer of money. It was a complete miscalculation on Sheng's part, but hey, Sheng wasn't having any of that. She threatened to fine the winner of the competition, the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, $5 million if they refused to comply with her order to give the money directly to the city of Oakland through the general fund. But when she later found out that, hey, you know what, that couldn't be done legally, they had to, and the attorneys had to come up with a different hybrid way of funneling the money eventually to the general fund. But what got in the way was the bond defeasement problem. And so to this point in time, this date, this August 8th, 2026 date, the bonds are still not defeased. Essentially, the African American Sports Entertainment Group still does not own the Coliseum. It will within a few months from now. But it did go through the procedure of selecting the Oakview Group to buy the Oakland Arena. But note, the decision of the Oakland City Council to permit that sale has been mistaken as, well, AASEG owns the land and Oakview Group owns it, and therefore the city gave them a loan. The city did not give them a loan because they don't own the property. All right? Now let's talk about the value. The value of the Coliseum Arena is estimated using the income multiplier approach. The net income of the Oakland Coliseum as of now stands at roughly $2.5 million. That's minus a subsidy that the city and the county annually give and have given to the arena that varies between $14 and $19 million. In this instance, I believe it was $18 million. So you have to take off the $18 million subsidy, and you're left with the rest, which is $2.5 million. That has been the case on average for the past 4 years. Bottom line, the Oakland Arena has been an underperforming economic asset. So that if you take that $2.5 million and multiply it times 6, which is standard for stadiums and arenas of that size and type, you come out with, yep, that's right, $15 million. And that is the value of the Oakland Arena. So if the Oakview Group is going to buy it for $50 million, then quite obviously the city is walking away able to pocket $35 million. That is far less than $5 billion, folks. And it's a gain for the city of Oakland. So where Wilson gets his numbers is crazy land. The Coliseum would only be worth $5 billion new, brand new. And even at that, that would be an undervaluation. Why? Because to replace both the stadium and the arena brand new, you're looking at an arena alone that could cost you as much as $1.5 billion, and a stadium that, especially if it were a dome, could cost you as much as $3 billion. So that's right there. You're looking at $5 billion right there from those two facilities. Then you add roads, sewers, land prep. You have to add the $400 million platform to raise the property because of the sea level rise problem. And by the time you're done, you're looking at something closer to $6 million or $7 million, $7 billion, excuse me, something closer to $6 billion or $7 billion. But you don't sell a property based on what its replacement cost new is, because there was no earthquake damage to the facilities to say, oh, this thing is completely wiped out. We have to replace it. We're going to get insurance. All right. That's the scenario under which you use replacement cost new as a metric for estimating what the value of the land is. That does not apply here, Wilson. What applies here is simply that you have a stadium and arena that have become almost worthless because the city of Oakland allowed its 3 sports organizations to leave and did nothing to retain them. They allowed the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda, in the guise of the Oakland Alameda County Joint Powers Authority, allowed both facilities to fall into a state of disrepair and also be managed for some time by an organization that based its money on deferred maintenance. In other words, well, we'll take care of this problem with a luxury seat one day down the road, and then we'll spend the money. So you, as a patron, walk into a luxury box on the west side of the Coliseum for an event, and you find that the baseboard air conditioning vent is fallen to the floor. Not a good look. There was a punch list that I still have possession of projects to be done at the Coliseum that were 145 in number. And I'll bet you to this day, not one of the items on that punch list has been addressed. Do you hear what I'm saying? The city was happy to believe that for some time, none of its teams would leave because they had nowhere to go. That was true for the A's. Oh, the A's aren't going to go anywhere, so why do we have to do anything in a hurry for them? And so the city did nothing. That even was the case when in 1996, Schott and Hoffman, the owners of the A's, threatened to move to Sacramento. Knowing that there was no deal to be had in Sacramento, the city did nothing to try to appease them, except for a couple of improvements in the Coliseum that were barely cosmetic. The Coliseum was still refurbished for the Raiders, and it was obvious. The A's needed a new ballpark. When the city came to plan for a new ballpark, it dragged its feet on it. The first version of the attempt to keep the A's started in 2021 at the behest of then Oakland City Attorney John Russo, who put up $100,000 of his own office money to establish a study on different sites for a new ballpark for the Athletics. Nice going, John. The number one site picked actually was downtown Oakland, uptown, at the old Emporium Capwell building. But Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown stepped in and said, I'm making a long story short, there's not going to be a blanking baseball stadium in downtown Oakland as long as I'm blanking mayor. And he said that May 12th of 2003, I believe at 12:32 in the afternoon, if memory serves. It was an awful event. And then he turned around and fired then City Administrator Robert Bobb for just trying to bring a downtown stadium to Oakland for the Athletics. So what did Robert Bobb do? Moved to Washington, became City Administrator, and was instrumental in bringing the Montreal Expos to Washington to become the Washington Nationals. That's the story of what happened with respect to the Coliseum to that point. After that, the city tried again to build Howard Terminal downtown, but failed to use tax increment financing in a timely fashion. I was actually the person that pushed for tax increment financing to be used. And finally, the city stepped to the plate to activate a new law called SB 293 Skinner, which California Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law October 11th of 2019. Only the city of Oakland dragged its feet and waited until the 27th of March of 2021 to begin meetings with the County of Alameda regarding starting this tax increment financing zone, because Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, said publicly that they were going to start looking at Las Vegas as a place to move the Athletics because the city of Oakland was moving too slowly. You understand? That is how we've got to where we are. The city not taking its role as a facilities provider and manager seriously. The city and the county not realizing that it's not in the sports business, it's in the facilities business. The city and the county acting like it could get away with a major disinvestment problem and allowing that to last for several decades. No, I didn't say years. I said decades with a D. It's been a problem for a long time. So where we are now is, again, I mentioned the Oakview Group, and we're waiting for the process of bond defeasance to subside so that once it does, the city of Oakland will eventually give away its ownership to AASEG in partnership with Oakview Group. Now, here's something that you should be aware of. The Oakview Group's involvement is not going to stop at the Oakland Arena, and it's quite possible that both the Oakview Group and Legends will wind up developing a significant portion of the Coliseum property. So there's the actual truth, folks. There's really what happened. And for those of you who believe that Ray Bobbitt and AASEG received the loan, they never received the loan. The city was never scheduled to loan the money. The idea was for the African American Sports Entertainment Group, now called the Oakland Acquisition Company, to identify a private buyer of the property, and they did. They put out a request for proposals. Oakview Group answered it to invest $100 million, and so did Legends. Oakview Group won the competition, but Legends is actually still involved at the Coliseum because they bought the organization that provides food and beverage services and maintenance services to the Coliseum facility, both stadium and arena. So there's the story, folks. Mr. Leung, please get your facts straight. all right? It's not worth it to build a viral video spreading lies and then taking the time to mention that the developer is black. And it sounds like you're using that as a pejorative. That is wrong and racist. Subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube for the truth, folks, and bookmark oaklandnewsonline.com. Thank you.